Hey YouTube, what's up? It's your boy Sean Austin here from Sean's Rabbit Chain Aquaponic Produce, and we're back with another rabbit farming video for you guys. So today we're filming inside because there's just too much noise outside. The farm next door, they have some construction going on there. A lot of heavy machinery, backhoes, trucks, bulldozers, you name it. It's just too noisy out there to film right now, so we're gonna be inside for today's video. So we're not gonna see much of the rabbits. But in today's video, we're going to be talking a bit about cages and your choice of whether to buy or build. So stay tuned and we'll be back with more right after this intro. Okay, so today we're talking about whether you want to buy or build cages, and this is subjective. Now there are a number of factors that would influence your decision of whether to buy or build. We're going to look at some of them today. I know we may not cover all. If I miss anything, let me know in the comment section, obviously. Also, if this is your first time here pulling up with us, make sure and hit that subscribe button because we put out a lot of good info here on rabbit farming, right? And don't forget to hit that little bell so you'll get notifications whenever we upload new content. So, buy or build. Now, at the risk of sounding biased, I would personally buy cages, but that's just me. And here at Sean's Rabbit Chain Aquaponic Produce, we also sell cages. Right? In fact, we have a shipment that just landed about a week or two ago, and we're just waiting for them to clear. So pretty soon, we're going to be launching some ads letting you know what's going on with those cages. But later on in this clip, you'll get a little idea of what the cages are going to look like. But first, let's touch on these points. So the first one is time. It all depends on how quickly you need your cages. There are options. If you need a cage right away, you can just go out and buy a cage if one's available. If it's a situation like us where we import cages, sometimes there's a bit of a wait because shipping, especially in the last year or so, has become increasingly slow. So it's how long you're willing to wait to have your cage. Another thing is, obviously, where time is concerned, if you do decide to build the cage for yourself, how much time do you have to allot towards building those cages? Because most people who rear rabbits on a medium to small scale, they also have jobs. So you're looking at whatever time you have left over from when you get home from work before you go to bed at night to work on those cages. So time is definitely a factor. Right, so that's something that you're going to have to wait and decide which way you should go. Okay, the next point is capital. I mean, how much money do you have to put out on cages? Now, sometimes it's cheaper to buy a cage than to build, and vice versa. Sometimes it's cheaper to build than buy. However, keep in mind, a lot of people think that it's cheaper to build the cage themselves because they don't attach a value to their own labor. So they think that if a guy is building a cage for you and the cage costs $4,000 and $1,000 out of that was his labor, then you'll be able to do it for $3,000 and save $1,000. Yeah, if you look at it that way, sure. But if you're putting a price to your labor, sometimes you're going to spend more than the $1,000 in time and labor, right, building that cage. Because there are other factors that influence that we're going to get to in a little bit. Okay, now to add to that, something that a lot of people also don't consider when you're going to build a cage. Building cages are not just about buying the wire. That's just the first part. You have to remember that you need to buy wire, you need to buy special pliers to cut the wire, special pliers for the clips if you're using J clips or C rings or whatever. You also have to buy the clips or the rings. And then yes, of course, you need to buy some gloves also. Because trust me, if you've never worked with wire building cages, you're guaranteed you're gonna have a few cuts and scrapes by the time you're done. So you're gonna need some protection. Wear some sleeves, get some gloves. So all of that is part of your expense. Yeah, and these are some of the things that you need to take into consideration. Something else to consider is your knowledge of cage building or lack thereof. If you've never built cages before, I can guarantee you're gonna have some wastage of wire because you're gonna make some mistakes. There are some basic things that sometimes we don't think about when we're building cages, especially when it comes to buying a roll of wire and then cutting up that wire to build a cage. Sometimes the dimensions don't always work out the way it works out in our mind. So you have to be mindful of that. You have to consider the wire that you're buying, if it's 3 foot width, 4 foot width, which one is going to work best for you with the size of cages you want to build. Also, you have to think it out and know the alignments that you want to use and cut for each part, that you have maximum usage of your wire and as little wastage as possible. Because trust me, you're going to end up with a lot of wastage when you're building cages. There's no way around that. Okay? Also consider this. When you completed the perimeter of the cage, you're going to have to cut out an area for the door. That piece that you cut out usually is too small to do anything else with. So there's another wastage that you're going to have to deal with. And then you also have to cut wire for your doors to cover that space you just cut. So keep some of these things in mind if you do decide to build your own cage, right? But sometimes it don't always work out the way you have it in your mind. So before you even start, make sure you write it down, draw it, jot it down, draw it out if you have to, so that you don't suffer too much losses. Of course, you don't have to consider that loss if you're buying a cage, because the person who's building the cage for you is the one who has to deal with that. So that's one less headache you have to think about. Okay, so another thing to consider is your skill level. You know yourself. Everyone's skill level is different. Some people are really good with tools. Some people aren't. How handy are you? Are you comfortable enough or confident enough to use power tools? But when you're building cages, to cut the wire, sometimes you can use a manual pliers that you have to squeeze. So it's a lot of work, trust me. Alright, by the time you're done, your forearm's gonna be really strong. Some people invest in like electric cutters, electric shears, things like that. So that's another cost you have to consider if you're going that way and thinking about reducing your labor. Otherwise, it's a lot of cutting. Also, I've seen a lot of examples where some people have decided not to do all wire cages. So they're building the hutch style where they're using wood and wire. So you have to think about the tools that you have to use, saws, etc. Your skills in carpentry. You might need power drills, drivers, things like that to run the screws, or a nail gun probably. So I mean, there's a lot to consider outside of just the cage if you decide to build it yourself. Obviously, if you decide to buy a cage, you don't need any tools and none of that headache is yours. Right? Guys, let me just apologize right away. We're still going to get some noise in the background because they have some cut off saws and things that they're running, cutting steel and bricks over there. I've tried to eliminate as much of the noise as possible. There's only so much I could do, and I can't keep pausing because this is about the 5th or 6th take I've done trying to record in between the use of these tools to reduce the noise. So you guys are just gonna have to bear with me. I'll try to speak a little louder, and I apologize in advance. Okay, so next point. Okay, if you're gonna build, something you have to consider also is the availability of material. I know guys who build cages, and within the last couple of years, they've had some issues with availability of material. they haven't been able to get wire and clips at the rate at which they require to put out the amount of cages they want to put out. So that's something you also have to consider. A lot more places now are selling wire. However, be mindful of what you're buying, because when it comes to wire and tools to build cages, you have to think about quality. Since we're talking about rabbits, if you're going to buy wire to build cages, then please do not buy wire that is not galvanized after welding. There's galvanized before welding and there's galvanized after welding. With the galvanized before welding, you'll have problems where the wire is joined and welded. That area there, the protective coating tends to be weaker. So in a short space of time, you're going to start seeing that wire rusting and you're going to have issues. So make sure you're buying wire that's galvanized after welding. Okay? Most times if you're buying a cage, obviously, you're going to get cages that come galvanized after welding, because they're going to build the entire cage and then they're going to galvanize it. So you have that added protection. So just keep that in mind. Also, the clips that you're buying, they are different quality clips if you're going to decide to build it for yourself. So ask for the best. Now, something I hear people say a lot, and I always try to emphasize: get the best possible start you could get, guys. If it means building or buying, get the best possible start. I like to think that if you're not ready or you're not in a position right now to acquire good quality cages or good quality wire, then it's almost safe to say that you're not quite ready to start yet. It may sound a bit harsh, but it's a reality, because sometimes people fall into the trap of buying cheaper wire to start now with the intent that they will upgrade as they go along. But sometimes, I mean, as the saying goes, the candle could cost a bit more than the funeral. A lot of these times, you're going to spend more time repairing cages than actually rearing rabbits. And it's going to become frustrating, and that's why a lot of people have come out of rabbit rearing. Because it's a constant work to be repairing cages all the time. So guys, seriously think about it. If you decide to build or buy, go for something that's good, that's going to last you at least a few years without you having to do any repairs, so you can focus on the task at hand, which is the rearing of rabbits. Right? Just something for you to think about. Okay, just a side note, I just remembered this. We're talking about cages, buying or building. Right. When it comes to wire quality, you also have to think about the gauge of the wire. I have a little clip that I did just a while ago. I'll show you it in a while to show you the cages that we'll be selling, or similar ones, because they are a bit different now. The new set are a bit different, and the gauge of the wire. But just for example, we tend to say that the minimum gauge wire you should start with is 16 gauge. Right? Now, if you're not familiar with gauges of wire, here's how it works. The bigger the number, the thinner the wire is. Okay? So 16 gauge will be thinner than 14 gauge, 12 or 10 gauge. The smaller the number of the gauge is, the thicker the wire is. Right? And we say that the minimum gauge you should start with is 16 gauge. Now this is 16 gauge wire here. This is 1 by half 16 gauge. Now there are a lot of hardwares out there selling wire that they're claiming to be 16 gauge. I've seen it myself, and when I inquired about it, and they say yes, it's 16 gauge. I say, you sure? They say yes. I just laugh because I know better. Now if you're not familiar with wire and the gauges are wire, you might be fooled. Now, a very simple way to tell, not exactly, but you can have an idea. 16 gauge wire can't be bent with just your hand. Anytime you can bend that wire with your hand, that is not 16 gauge wire, trust me. Okay, I've been dealing with wire for many years, so I could almost 95 of the time look at a wire and be 100% sure of what gauge it is. So I know I see a lot of wire out there that's not 16 gauge. So guys, buy or build, your choice, but be mindful. Don't be fooled, get the right stuff. Okay, one last point to consider. You're talking about building or buying, your choice. Something else you might want to consider is aesthetics. How is the cage going to look? Right, depending on your skill level, because I've seen some guys build some really neat professional looking cages. It's harder than it looks. Not everyone can do it. So I give all respect to guys who build good cages. Right, one guy in particular, my good friend Nigel, out there in Maloney, he builds rabbit cages for people. I give 100% respect to persons who build cages and build them professionally like he does, because I know it's not an easy job. A lot of people take it for granted. That's why sometimes when you offer a cage for sale, people tend to think sometimes it's a bit expensive, and that's because they don't have a true appreciation for how much work goes into building a cage. So think about it. How's the cage going to look when it's done? I mean, to some people this may not be important. It may just be about housing the rabbits. But to some people, it may be, depending on where you're going to place this cage, if it's going to be in view of other persons, or just for your own personal satisfaction. Sometimes you just like to see things look a certain way, you know? So if you're going to build a cage, some things you have to consider sometimes is how you're going to get these edges, right? I have probably 50 scrapes and cuts on each of my forearms from all the years that I've been dealing with rabbits and working with wire cages, because you can never tend to get that wire cut as flat as you want to. There's always a few little edges here that sometimes you can scrape your hand on. Right? I'm sure there are tools that will do it better. I didn't have those tools at the time. So, and you're going to have to consider that as well if you have the right tools to get it done. If not, you're going to have to use, I see some people use an angle grinder to smooth the edges here. I don't recommend that, because when you use the angle grinder, you are actually heating up the wire as you grind it down, and it damages the protective coating. So you're going to start getting some rust along the edge here. So that's something to consider. I see they have some plastic edge covers that they sell that you can put along the edges here to protect your hand from scrapes and things like that. But like I say, if aesthetics is something that's important to you, that you have to consider between buying and building. And I'm going to show you a little clip now to give you an idea of what the cages are going to look like, what we're going to have on sale soon. Keep in mind, they're going to be slightly different. I think the compartments are a little bigger, but they do come with everything that's complete and ready to go. So take a look, guys. So guys, this is an example of the cages that we are going to have on sale. You'll notice that first of all, the gauge of this wire is really thick, really sturdy. This is probably 10 gauge wire, right? It's really sturdy. Of course, we have the plastic floors as well. You know, nice feature about this cage is that the doors stay shut for themselves. So if you push the door up, it stays open, and then when you pull it down, it stays shut. So you don't need any clamps for the doors. Of course, we have the solid plastic floor, which gets your rabbit's feet off of the wire. I know some people have issues with that. We've never really had a problem with it, but this is an added feature. Of course, they come equipped with feeders and waterers as well. These are the bowl waterers. They also have a little nozzle in there, right? And that uses the black tubing and runs to tank reservoir. So each of the cages or sets will come with a reservoir. There's a float in here, and this is connected to the main water tank. So this tank always remains full, so they always have water. If I step back a bit so you can see, it's a 3-tier cage that houses 12 rabbits. So you have 12 compartments all in one set. Okay guys, so I hope that you guys found this video useful, found the information useful. It's good to be back with you guys. You know, with all that's going on in the world right now, especially, is the most important time to try and be as sustainable as you can be. And rabbit farming is one of those things that someone can do with the smallest space in the back of their yard, where you can supply some meat for your own table to feed your family. So definitely guys, like this video, share this video with someone who you think it would benefit. In fact, share it with everybody. Help us to go viral. Okay? And of course, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think, what choices you have considered, whether to buy or build. And if you're interested in the cages that we're offering, contact us directly. I will leave all our contact information in the description box below. I'll say that again. If you're interested in our cages, contact us directly. I will leave all our contact information in the description box below. So, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching, guys. Look forward to seeing you all again next week, Monday, please God. Until then, peace.